My name is Johanna Kuhner, and in my college history class, I was assigned a project called Lest We Forget Biographical Research Presentation. So for this project, I had to choose an American figure within the last about 150 years and do a biography, and then state how he or she should be remembered. I chose John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy was the 35th president and was involved in many other politics for many years. My biography source I chose was JFK, Coming of Age in the American Century by Frederick Logevall. Logevall is a Swedish-American historian and educator at Harvard University. Most Americans love John, but there was a part of the nation that did not, for things like his age, experience, and some people didn't even like how he wanted to end segregation. John Kennedy, known as John or JFK, was born on May 29, 1917 in Brooklyn, Maryland. He was a part of a large family with 8 siblings. Being the second-born son, their father looked at Joseph Jr., the older son, as their primary son. On page 67, Logevall states, the father saw him as an extension of himself. He was also in politics, forcing the family to move around. They eventually ended up in Riverdale, New York, when John was 10 years old. He graduated from Kuwait, a private school, in 1935 as an average student. This is a picture of the family's first home and where John was born. This is a couple of pictures from John in high school, ranging from about 15 to 18 years old. After high school, John took a gap year and went to travel Europe with his family. He learned a lot on this trip and later said it was well worth it. He continued his education at Harvard University from 1936 to 1940. After college, he went into the U.S. Naval Reserves. He became a commanding general and received multiple awards for his service. Quote, family connections got him to places he otherwise never would have reached, end quote. Logevall talks about this on page 293. Here's a picture of John in his naval uniform. Kennedy was elected into the House of Representatives in 1947 and served until 1953. In his campaign, he explained he wanted to offer better housing for veterans, better working conditions, and better health care. I included a picture of Kennedy in his office on the right. After being in the House, Kennedy was eager to move forward with his career. He was elected to the Senate in 1953 and was re-elected again in 1958, serving until 1960. This was when his presidential campaign started. On page 537, Logevall talks about John meeting his future wife, and he states, yet for all the political calculation that may have lurked in Jack's mind, the evidence is powerful that he was genuinely taken with Jackie. A year into his Senate years, he married Jackie. In 1957, Caroline, their daughter, was born. She went into politics as well and is still living today. In 1960, the same year as Kennedy's election, John Jr. was born. He later passed away in 1999. This is a picture of John and Jackie with their 2 kids, John Jr. and Caroline. On page 650, Logevall talks about John having doubts about running for president. He states, Jack laid out reasons he shouldn't run. He was Catholic, he had yet to turn 40, he didn't have the support from the Americans. But his father convinced him otherwise. So for the 35th presidential election, it was Kennedy and Nixon. They held the first televised debate. He became the youngest president to be elected at 43 years old. Kennedy served in office from 1961 to 1963, when he was assassinated tragically. On January 20th, 1961, he was sworn into office. He said his famous quote that day, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Kennedy did many big things during his short time in office. The Cuban Missile Crisis occurred during his second year in office. Kennedy had to make a choice to either attack and possibly start a nuclear war, or do nothing but have the threat of nuclear weapons so close to our country. Kennedy and the head of the USSR came to an agreement that saved a lot of lives. Kennedy also started the Peace Corps. This is an organization that helps other nations in things they need help with, like education, food, farming. Kennedy also had other great ideas to end discrimination and to help grow the economy. On November 22, 1963, at about 12:30 p.m., John F. Kennedy was assassinated. He was only 46 years old and was president for 3 years. Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested but was shot on sight by another citizen. So the question is, was John F. Kennedy a good president? I believe John F. Kennedy was a great president. He had so many great ideas, from ending discrimination to bringing peace to the entire world. He was a family man, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. Kennedy was a great president and has left such a legacy. He was a Democrat, but even most Republicans would agree he did so many great things. In my opinion, John F. Kennedy was one of the greatest presidents. One thing I found very interesting is JFK was a smart man and had many speeches. I couldn't list all of them, but I picked out some of my favorite quotes that he had said. A child miseducated is a child lost. Things do not happen, things are made to happen. Man is still the most extraordinary computer of all. Mankind must put an end to a war before the war puts an end to mankind. Every accomplishment begins with the decision to try. Forgive your enemies, but never forget their names. Thank you.